It's only the journalist and media reports. Uh, I have not come across any any poem or any piece of literature which has anything to do with the violence per se. So I don't know. I may be wrong, but maybe I mean, at least in English, I may be the first who wrote a poem or two, couple of poems about it. I think many people must have been taken by surprise. And but again, having said that, this is not something new. I'm talking about the ethnic class now. It has happened in Manipur uh, between different communities, of course. So it's not something new. So so a bit of a surprise, but at the same time, when you reflect on it, again, not very surprising. There have been attempts later on, of course, by people from outside Manipur, from another part of the country, by some literary group who asked me to, who were trying to actually compile some kind of anthology of literature, poetry and fiction, maybe, which has to do with this with this crisis. Heroin actually has ravaged about maybe three generations. It began perhaps from my generation. I'm 65 now, so my childhood friends who would be say into alcohol, then ganja. Ganja is cannabis, isn't it? Is it cannabis? Then I experienced it. Then they graduated to to opium. Then so this was when I was still living in Imphal. So they graduated to I later on I heard that they graduated to heroin. Then they used to take pills. Then they graduated to heroin, and quite a few of them passed away from overdose or from addiction. It has ravaged. So say beginning from my generation, then my I'm 65 now. So then my children's generation, then even my grandchildren's generation. So it's not something that we are not we're not familiar with. It's nothing. It's not new. But as I mentioned, the it seems the Golden Triangle has moved from earlier. It was part of Thailand and Laos and the Golden Triangle. So maybe it has. So the earlier Golden Triangle maybe no longer exists. So it has moved to Myanmar and Manipur mostly. So unfortunately, although all the communities are involved in the drug trade, uh, all the communities from Manipur are involved in the drug trade, but one particular community, they are actively involved in poppy cultivation. It means a lot of money, so it's a thriving kind of economy. So the present crisis has a lot to do with also with poppy cultivation, with the amount of money that which will you know how it unfolds. Buy weapons, buy weapons. You can influence people. So people say that even politicians and bureaucrats and police officials are involved. And that that is uh, that is believable. In fact, even I read reports some years ago that even army officers, who've been working, who've been posted in Manipur, even they were caught with drugs. You must have noticed that people have been talking about international players now, because Myanmar. Myanmar, so you have China, then you have people are talking about even American involvement, okay, and it has to do with economy because Myanmar, it's fairly untapped, when it comes to resources, minerals, and many other things. So, and politics also. India would not like to antagonize Myanmar because the Chinese influence is there. Because if India were to antagonize Myanmar, Chinese would have more control. Would become more friendlier. I mean, with Myanmar. See, I'm not a political analyst, but this is just my a layman's understanding of things. So they believe that most of the arms have come from China, and we talk about drug money. See, so in fact, in these and Myanmar has been in turmoil for many years, for decades actually, So you're talking about the sophisticated arms. So that's how the arms have come. Maybe we don't know. Maybe even Americans have supplied. Yeah. So the border is porous. It's not fenced. It is unfenced, and the free movement regime within 10 kilometers. I think you don't need a passport. You don't need visas. Yeah, and you can blend in because you will look alike. We speak the same language, so you can easily blend in and become a say someone from Myanmar, a Kuki Chin from Myanmar. They can come and they can easily become a citizen of Manipur or citizen of India. Because they can get again if it has to do with money. You can get identity cards, passports, and Aadhaar and everything. It's very easy to get, do those things. It's only the government. It's only the center who can. No, the state is more or less. I think again, I may be wrong. I mean, I may be wrong. So we don't know. Things are there are many conspiracy theories. So the state, they say that even no, anyway, this is politics. So I don't want to talk about it about things that I'm not certain about. I've been, of course, I've been living away from Manipur, but nearby, So I hear, I mean, because my people, people from my community and other communities too, friends from other communities. In fact, now these two warring communities, Meiteis and Kukis, I have very close friends from the Kuki community. In fact, I wrote a poem also about one of them, one of my closest friends actually, who had a terrible experience earlier, and now, you know, unfortunately and shockingly, he is living through the same terrible experience that he experienced years ago. Not any kind of a direct experience, but at one point, when insurgency was at its height, almost everyone, you know, before when APSPA was there in the valley. Now APSPA has been, yeah, that, withdrawn from the municipal areas, So everyone, almost everyone, my cousins, my own brother, they were all, sometimes, when there is a militant attack. This was during ASPA. Then, so the army used to conduct a search operation. They call it combing operation. Combing operation. So there were brutalities, atrocities committed during the combing operations. So my own brother was beaten up. My cousin was beaten up very badly. You know, there was a bomb planted near an army camp. So no one was killed, but uh, the army retaliated by brutalizing civilians. So there were civilians around, and they just killed them. Civilians, not the insurgents, but ordinary civilians. This was near a bus set in a bus stop, and many people don't know about it. A young boy, schoolboy, he had just won the National Bravery Award. He was killed by the army. So the army, always very trigger happy. There'll be brutal kind of reprisals, but not again so much again. Of course, they've been shooting each other. I mean, the insurgents, and I talk about the state and the state and the non-state. Okay, they've been shooting at each other, but they have committed terrible crimes, terrible atrocities, rape, uh, murders. Disappearances. A terrible thing. So, but as I mentioned, I didn't experience it uh, any personal kind of violence myself. During those years when I used to go to Imphal in winter during my winter vacation. I was a student and I was working elsewhere in Shillong actually. So whenever I go home, and if I have to go anywhere outside outside, say to the market, to the bazaar, there will be the army people. They will always frisk you at gunpoint. All the time. So it was quite shocking and humiliating. I cannot say I cannot predict or say things. I think it will take years, to heal actually, because so now the two communities, the warring communities, their positions are fairly entrenched. So it will take many years, but unfortunately, there's no effort to talk. You know, so I wouldn't use the word compromise, but even to begin a dialogue, there has been no sincere efforts from both the communities, whether it involves civil society organizations or politicians. There's no sincere effort to talk, actually. So fairly hardened positions, and mm, it needs some kind of political solution, and it's entirely up to the center to to to, to bring about that solution, to initiate that solution. But unfortunately, again, the center is non-committal, um, keeping some kind of a studied silence, for whatever reasons we don't know, So it's very, it's disturbing and it's puzzling at the same time, very disturbing too. So it will take many years for things to heal, actually. See, we don't have a refugee policy. India doesn't have a refugee policy. But I think on humanitarian grounds, regardless of communities, wherever it may be in India, I think people should be given shelter, on humanitarian grounds. So maybe they should be sheltered, maybe maybe in camps, and later maybe they can be sent back. So that is fine. But we don't have a refugee policy. But in Manipur, what has happened is certain communities who also belong to Myanmar, they have ties, ethnic and cultural ties, affinities with with communities from with the Mizos and with the the Kuki people. So uh, because of the conflict or the crackdown, with by the junta, military junta in Myanmar. So they were forced to flee. There's no denying that. But I don't know if you've heard about the free movement regime. Yeah. But influx has been going on for a long time. It is not for me to say whether it's wrong or right, but it's a small state. So there will be pressure on resources, on land. you know. Most of the states in the northeast are small, so it may be Manipur, it may be Mizoram, it may be Nagaland or any other. So if they have this kind of unabated influx, uncontrolled influx, it will create some kind of a demographic, imbalance, and that will further aggravate, So people who come, say from Myanmar, they will be naturally looked upon with suspicion by the people who have been living in Manipur. Um, they will consider them to be a threat. As I said, space, resources, and very small space. Very small space. Manipur is a very small state. And the thing is, see, I don't know, many of you may not be aware that in most of the states of the Northeast, uh, people who are, again, I talked about indigeneity, about indigenous people. So the Nagas, you have the Nagas who are indigenous people. Manipur, you have different communities who are so-called indigenous people, or people who have been living there, original inhabitants. So they have uh, put into practice or adopted this policy in every state, almost every state, where even if you're an Indian, I mean the rest of the Indians, they're not allowed to buy land or property or settle there. Why? Because of fear of being reduced to minorities in their own state, fear of being swamped. So that's why you have this policy in all the state policies, where outsiders are not allowed to buy land or property. So which is a contradiction, because if you're an Indian, you should be allowed to settle anywhere, isn't it? So why have they stopped outsiders? Because of the fear of being swamped, because of the fear of being reduced to minorities in their own state. Suppose people from Uttar Pradesh, one of the most largely populated. I used to joke that just a drop of Uttar Pradesh, that's a drop of people population from Uttar Pradesh. I've been living in Meghalaya for many years, in Shillong actually. So if they were supposed to come and settle in in Meghalaya, a small state, they'll be reduced to minorities in their own. So demographic imbalance. So by the same token, regardless of whether you have ethnic ties or not with the Kuki people from Myanmar and Bangladesh, if they're allowed to infiltrate or come to Manipur or to Mizoram, again, it will create a demographic imbalance. So let's not be hypocritical about it. If you're not allowing others, even fellow Indians, to settle because of this fear, then by the same token, you cannot allow anyone else, whether you have ethnic ties or not. Yeah, you understand? No? Yeah, 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 yeah.